Hello and welcome to today's student CPD that is looking at approaches to critical thinking. This is something that you will be expected to do and will do frequently during your studies. But here's the clincher. You've been doing this for a really long time already. This is not activity. This is something that you do in your day-to-day life, and it has kept you alive this long, so you must be pretty good at it. To start off, and I would encourage you to pause me here, consider the things that you have thought about today, the actions that you've taken that you've had to thought, I won't do that now, I'll do it later because. So it could be anything. It could even be snoozing your alarm. It could be, what am I going to have for lunch today? It might be, what clothes am I going to wear? There are thought processes behind all of those actions. So I want you to take a moment. I'd encourage you to pause me for a couple of minutes and write down some of the decisions you have made today, even if it is as simple as replying to a text message, and consider all of the thought that went into it. Just pause me now. Okay, hopefully you've done that. Even the smallest of actions that you have conducted today have required you to critically analyse the impact that your action has had. The thing is, you did it without really knowing that that's what you were doing. For example, if we take the replying to a text message, you could have looked at the message and replied later in the day. A thought process might be, I'll get round to that later, it's not urgent. In that moment, you've critically analysed your timeline, your priorities, and made a decision accordingly. Alternatively, you could have answered the message immediately. You might have given a very quick response, rushed in your typing, and you might have made an error. Part of the critical analysis there is thinking about what you should have done, so it's reflective. The point that I'm trying to make is that everything we do requires an analysis of our surroundings and our situations. It's just that in some cases we're more practiced and therefore more confident. Nobody is a beginner at critical thinking. You are doing it every day. Sometimes you don't even notice that you're doing it, but just because that's true, it doesn't mean that you're not. If you consider that critical thinking is the ability to analyse information and make your own judgment on any situation, it's a crucial skill for university and later in life anyway. Equally, it's something that an employer is going to look for. It links to creativity, problem solving, independence, and living autonomously, and so many others. Critical thinking involves identifying where and when you need to get more information. So take that text message example. They could have asked you a question and you might not know the answer. That's maybe one reason why you delayed replying. Selecting the right type and amount of information for the purpose. What about if you're angry at that person who sent you a message? Maybe that's why you didn't reply yet, because you're trying to work out the very best way to respond to the message. And then selecting the appropriate level of critical analysis for the specific circumstances. The chances are when considering replying to a text message, you're not going to make a for and against list for it. You're not going to start to assess its strengths, its weaknesses, its opportunities for development or threats to your success because it doesn't require you to. You're aware that's an idea that you could look into, and you most likely will reflect on what you say and maybe which emoji to use, but that level is always appropriate to task. And that is something that is significant. Get your head around that and critical thinking becomes much easier for what you're trying to achieve. Like I've said in the videos on reading the question and understanding a mark scheme, having a true appreciation for the demands of the task that you're trying to do, to complete and to succeed with, is your starting point. So just bear that in mind as it applies here as well. This is another opportunity for you to pause me, look at the information on screen and respond to this reflectively. A woman was near death from a special kind of cancer with only one drug that might save her. It was a form of radium that a druggist in the same town had discovered. The drug was expensive, but the druggist was charging 10 times the cost. The sick woman's husband, Heinz, went to everyone he knew to borrow the money, but could only get together £1,000, which is half of what it would have cost him. He told the druggist that his wife was dying and asked to sell it cheaper or let him pay later, but the druggist refused. He discovered it and wanted to make money from it. So Heinz got desperate and broke into the man's laboratory to steal the drug for his wife. The question there is, should Heinz have broken into the laboratory to steal the drug for his wife? Why or why not? Critically evaluate that situation. What sort of contributors, factors, significant settings, scenarios are influencing that action? Consider the outcomes and the consequences. Look at all of those pieces of information and then discuss that with a peer. I'd encourage you at this point to pause me again to give you the opportunity to complete that task. Hopefully now you're able to come back with some of the answers to those reflective questions. I don't have an answer for you here. This is an exercise to flex the critical thinking muscles that you have. The point is to try and consider all of the different ideas and perspectives involved. For example, if we took the side of the druggist and you see that you've created something and it's worth an awful lot of money, would you not want to sell it at its highest profit? If you're the wife, would you really want your husband to risk going to prison for your behalf? If you're the husband, would you be willing to not only put yourself in jail and still lose your wife for the hope of a Hail Mary? It's complicated, but considering all of those perspectives and viewpoints is the act of critical thinking. You can only fail at critical thinking by not trying. The moment that you start and go, I don't know, or I give up, that is the point where you are not going to be successful. If you take into consideration any aspect of what I've just discussed, you are already on your way to success. It would be really fun to be able to use the X factor and all of the graphics associated to illustrate this, but actually I'm looking for the Y factor. Why is that a consideration? Why is the person motivated to sell at a profit? Why is the person in a situation where their wife is struggling? Why do they not have the money for that? What have they done? When you consider any perspective, idea or theory and start asking why of all of the different factors that are influencing that concept or theory, you start to get under the skin of critical thinking. Usually I would leave you with a task to do at the end, but as today's video has had 2 tasks embedded within it, my advice to you would be just to keep in mind the critical thinking of a variety of different acts. Maybe keep a note of the things that you do through today, and then critically evaluate at the end why you did them. It might help that reflective journal that I've been giving you advice on as well.